Hi, welcome to Hattie Knits Along. My name's Allison, but my friends call me Hattie, and I'm a knitter living in the Pacific Northwest. On this channel, I like to talk about all things knitting, what I'm working on, what you're working on, and what we are currently nerding out about. In today's episode, I'm going to continue my gift knitting series by talking about quick knits for hands and feet. I like looking for patterns for hands and feet, like mittens and socks and slippers, because I think that they make really great gift knits because they're quick to knit and don't use a lot of yarn. At the end of the episode, I'll also be filling you in on some of my whips, so I hope that you will stick around. I'll be going over 6 patterns for hands and 6 patterns for feet/legs, and some of them I have knit before, but most of them I haven't. But I think that it will be a fun little journey to go down together, and we will start off with talking about patterns for hands. The first pattern I'm going to talk about is the Penny Glove by Petite Knit. Now this pattern costs 35 Danish kroner on Ravelry, which is about $5.29 US. It's a sport weight gauge, about 25 stitches for 10 centimeters, and they use a size US 2.5 or a 3mm needle to knit these gloves. The penny gloves are fingerless gloves, work seamlessly from the cuff to the fingers. They can be worked either on doubled pointed needles or on a long circular needle using the magic loop method. Now this pattern only has one size, which probably is about a woman's medium. It's a very basic and simple pattern, and I think it would be pretty easy to modify if you needed to make them bigger or smaller. Another way you could modify them is making the length of the arm shorter or longer. It's a very simple knit, which is why I included it on here first, because I think that anybody could pick up some needles and figure this out. It's just stockinette. In fact, even the edges are rolled stockinette. There's not even any ribbing, so it's very simple to knit and would make a very great gift for anybody who would like to have some fingerless mitts. The next pattern I'm going to talk about is the World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits. This is a free pattern by Tin Can Knits, which, if you haven't heard of Tin Can Knits, they just make amazing patterns that are so beginner friendly. They really take you through step by step on how to do every part of the pattern and, you know, hold your hand a little bit with it. But it's a great way to start out knitting if you haven't knit anything like mittens before. This pattern is designed for any gauge, so you can use yarn from fingering all the way up to bulky yarn, and you just choose your needle size based on the gauge that you're trying to achieve with the weight of yarn that you're using. They come in 5 different sizes from toddler through adult large. Tin Can Knits is always very size inclusive. They love to make knits for the whole family, so they always have baby sizes all the way up through adult large. They say, sometimes winter catches you by surprise and you need a pair of mittens quick. These are a perfect quick knit or a blank canvas for mitten fun. Now I think these would be a great stash buster because they don't use very much yarn at all. The DK weight size in the largest size doesn't even use a full skein of yarn, so you could definitely be pulling out some scraps, especially if you're making the toddler size. They're so little, you could definitely use scraps to finish those up. You could knit them really quickly if it's a last minute gift that you need to make for somebody. So also, because they mentioned that it's a blank canvas, you know, it's all stockinette, so if you wanted to include a color work chart that you throw in there, it would be really easy to do and super easy to modify. You could do stripes, you could marl 2 strands of fingering weight together, lots of different options. The next pattern is Sea Glass Mittens by Woolen Pine. This is This pattern costs $5 on Ravelry, and it's a new pattern that just came out in October 2024. It's a DK weight gauge, which is about 26 stitches for 4 inches. Stash busters, this one's for you. Sea glass mittens are the ultimate way to use up those treasured bits and bobs from your yarn stash while creating something cozy and practical. These mittens are knit in the round from cuff to the fingertips using a playful 1x1 colorwork pattern that alternates colors every round. The result? A unique and vibrant accessory that's bursting with personality. Sized for everyone from toddlers to adults, sea glass mittens make the perfect gift or family knitting project. And with our easy to follow pattern, you can mix and match yarns for an endless variety of color combinations. Whether you use DK scraps, hold fingering weight yarn double, or mix in all your odds and ends, these mittens will help you create something truly special. Like the pattern suggests, this is an amazing stash busting pattern. You can use all kinds of different scraps, and you really don't need a lot of each color. So you could make this pattern, well, it costs $5 to buy the pattern, but to make the mittens, you could do it for free with little scraps and pieces of yarn from your stash. Since they are relatively small, you can knit them really quickly again, and they come in sizes from toddler through adult, so you could make some for a whole family, matching, or if you're using scraps, maybe not matching, but similar style mittens for a whole family. That could be a very fun gift knit. The next pattern I'm going to talk about is the Underwing Mitts by Erica Heuser. This pattern costs $6 on Ravelry. It's a fingering weight gauge, about 34 stitches for 4 inches on US size 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. These fingerless mitts feature a pair of underwing moths known for their striking color on their hind wings that is often hidden from view. Accompanied by a moon phase motif reflecting their nocturnal nature, a wide figurative panel on the back of each mitt wraps around to meet a narrower panel along the palm side of the mitt. This pattern is recommended for knitters who have experience with stranded color work, reading from charts, knitting in the round, and adding duplicate stitch. This pattern only comes in one size, which is about a women's size medium, and it would be a great for an experienced colorwork knitter. So if you are somebody who wants to make smaller items as gift knits but likes to have an engaged knit and loves to do colorwork charts, I think that this pattern could be really fun for that, especially if you are knitting these up for a nature lover. Erica Heuser has a ton of different colorwork patterns that are all nature inspired, from mittens to hats to cowls, so I would definitely look at all of her patterns, but these ones I thought were really beautiful in the black and white motif with a little pop of color for the underwing of the moths. I think they could be a really beautiful gift that could become an heirloom for somebody, but definitely not a beginner pattern with this one. Next are the Cabled Dad Mittens by Alexis Winslow of Knit Darling. This pattern costs $7 on Ravelry, and it is a worsted weight gauge, which is about 22 stitches per 4 inches on US size 5 needles or 3.75 millimeters. These handsome mittens were inspired by my own father's desire for basic yet classy cold weather gear. The pattern includes instructions to knit 3 unisex styles: classic mittens, fingerless mitts, and convertible gloves. Choose your own adventure. Each style features a super easy cable pattern. The project is a quick knit worked with worsted weight yarn but on smaller needles, which produces a dense fabric to keep your hands extra warm. Directions for 3 sizes are included, along with tips for a custom fit. This pattern even has video tutorials that you can watch to help you get it just right, to make sure you're getting the fit right in all the different spots. And I like that in one pattern you have fingerless mitts, full mittens and convertible mittens all in the same pattern, so you can really customize it depending on who you're knitting the pattern for and use this pattern over and over and over again. I actually am going to be making this for my brother this year. He requested some convertible mittens. I purchased some Mag by Fibers Quartet in the color Rhiannon, and that is a 100% superwash merino in a worsted weight. I think this would be a good yarn to knit these mittens in because they are superwash, and I think that they would be easy for my brother, who's not necessarily used to caring for knits, to take care of them. And I like the color a lot, this beautiful green color. The cabled pattern is just classic and anybody would like it, so I think that this is a great option for a gift knit. My final pattern for hands is the Flip 'em Mitts by Jessica Warden, and I'm specifically talking about the fingering weight version, but there is also a DK weight version. This is a $4 Australian pattern, so that's about $2.79 US right now. It's a fingering weight gauge, 32 stitches in 4 inches on US 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter needles. They said, cold hands, want to wear gloves or mittens, but then you can't use your phone quickly without taking them off? Me too. These fingerless mitts have one piece knit in finger flap, so you can either wear them as fingerless mitts or cover your fingers for warmth quickly and easily. Knit in one piece, the mitt can be made with 9-inch circulars, DPNs, or magic loop, and the flap is integrated into the mitten, no sewing, and sits flat on the back of the mitt when you're not using it. Most floor ply fingering yarns will work for this project, and it uses less than 1 skein. There's also a DK weight version of this pattern, so you can make it a little thicker, but I do like the fingering weight version because I think this would be great for people who live in a more mild climate and don't necessarily need super thick worsted weight gloves on their hands at all times. I have made this pattern once before. I made them for my daughter. They're so small. I made them last year and they don't really fit her anymore, but here's the little flap. But these are a very quick knit. I knit these in 4 days, so no time at all really in knitting language. This I knit in Always Be Kind yarn in the color Care Bear Stare on their sparkle sock base. So I used a sock yarn, so it's pretty durable. This yarn has amazing designated pooling of these rainbows, which I really liked and my daughter really liked. I mean, she's a pretty girly girl, so pink rainbow sparkle mittens were right up her alley. So very quick knit, great for mild climate, and using some sock yarn that you might have it doesn't even use a whole I think I have enough yarn of this skein to make a whole nother pair of mittens if I wanted to. Now I'm going to talk about gift knits for feet. So when I was looking for patterns to talk about, I went on Ravelry and I excluded patterns that were fingering weight and under in gauge size. I was thinking about what makes a good gift knit, and I think that something that makes a good gift knit is something that is pretty universal in terms of who could wear it. And I feel like regular knit socks, although I really love to wear knit socks, may be kind of an acquired taste. So it might be easier to give somebody a gift of a DK weight or up sock or slipper. And I also think that, gift knits, we want them to be pretty quick to knit. Fingering weight socks can take a while to knit, so DK and up are going to be faster. And I also think that we're getting into the cool season, so everybody wants a pair of warm house socks or house slippers to throw on. So that's how I picked these patterns, and I hope that they come in handy for you. I have made a Ravelry bundle called Quick Gift Knits Hands and Feet. So you can look for that link down below in the description box. While you're down there, if you're liking this video so far, please go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel. And please also tell me in the comments what you are currently working on, or if you are gonna knit up any of these patterns or have any other gift knit patterns that you recommend. The first pattern is the DK Weight Vanilla Socks by the Crazy Sock Lady. I included this pattern because, first of all, it's a free pattern, which we love. Second, I think that vanilla socks are a great beginner pattern for learning how to knit socks. So if you've never knit socks before, this will be good for you. The Crazy Sock Lady is obviously, by her name you can tell she is very into sock knitting, so I highly recommend all of her patterns in terms of sock knitting and learning the basics. She has a lot of different options out there in terms of basic patterns that she switches up the stitch patterns a little bit to make them a little more interesting, but still they don't get too crazy. So this pattern is a DK weight gauge, 7 stitches per inch, and she uses a US size 3 or a 3.25 millimeter needle. It comes in 3 different sizes, and you can use 1 strand of DK weight yarn, or you can hold 2 strands of fingering weight yarn together. It's a really easy, fast knit, like I said, great intro into sock knitting, and these would be great to wear around the house. I personally probably wouldn't want to wear DK weight socks in shoes or boots, but around the house I think that they would be nice. Maybe in like some snow boots they might be nice. I don't know, haven't tried that. But the second pattern is actually a pattern for your legs, not your feet, but it is the Lovely Ribbed Leg Warmers by Pearl Soho. This is another free pattern. Pearl Soho has a plethora of free patterns to choose from, and they are all really great and easy to understand. This pattern is a DK weight gauge as well. It's 35 stitches for 4 inches, but that's in 2x2 ribbing. So it seems like a lot more stitches, but the ribbing scrunches it in. And that's on US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needles. In the pattern, they use 1 strand of sport weight yarn and 1 strand of lace weight mohair. So you can hold multiple yarns together to get that DK weight gauge, or you can just hold 1 strand of DK weight yarn. It comes in 6 different sizes, and it is, I think, probably super simple to knit. It's a tube. They use DPNs, it's double pointed needles, so you're just going around and around. You don't have to do any gusset heel flaps, heel shaping at all. You don't have to do decreases for the toe. I do see that they have some shaping for the calf, so you will have to do some increases for the calf, but it looks really simple. And I love the way the increases look on the back of the leg. They kind of give it a cabled look almost, so I like that a lot. And again, these would just be a really cozy thing to give somebody, and I think pretty easy to find the right fit for without, knowing the size of somebody's foot or things like that. It would be a simple gift knit in that regard. Might take a little while to knit that long of a tube, but it is on US 4, so not the smallest needles. The third pattern are the Simple Garter Stitch Slippers by Cloudy Days Designs. This is a third free pattern. Lots of free patterns on this list, and I think That goes to show that lots of people are looking out for you when it comes to gift knitting season in terms of finding quick knits that are cheap to make. This is a worsted weight gauge, and it's all garter stitch, which is, the gauge is 19 inches for 4 inches on US size 4 or 3.5 millimeter again. In the pattern, they use 2 fingering weight yarns held together, but you could find a worsted weight yarn that could help you get to the right gauge as well. Simple garter stitch slipper pattern, knitted flat and seamed with neat crocheted finishing. The pattern is written for a woman's size large, but the size is easily customized. The pattern calls for 2 small skeins of fingering weight sock yarns. These yarns are held double, but this is an opportunity to use up your sock yarn scraps, and thus you can also replace it with a single strand of worsted weight yarn. So this is another simple and quick and free pattern using up your scrap yarn again, and it's also very customizable in terms of the colors that you want to use and marling the yarns together or not, striping. There's lots of different options you could do here. With the crocheted finishing edges, you could definitely do a pop of color for those parts that's different than your main garter stitch part. Like they say in the pattern, they only have it in one size, but I think once you figure out how the construction works, it would be easy to add length to it to make it a little bit longer or make it a little bit wider for somebody who has different size feet. The next pattern are the cabin slippers by Ysolda Teague. This pattern costs £6, but that's about $8.12 in US money. It's a worsted weight gauge, 14 inches and 4 inch in brioche stitch on US size 6 or 4 millimeter needles. This pattern comes in 10 sizes. I think this is our biggest size range for all of the patterns today, but 10 sizes from kids small to adult extra, extra, extra large. So you literally can make it for everybody in your family. Slippers are the ultimate project to make use of brioche stitch with its thick fabric and elasticity. The cabin slippers were made to be easy to put on and hard to take off. The perfect accessory for snuggling up under a blanket as you watch the snow fall. A wide size range means that you can make them for everyone in the family, or stock a basket to give guests the ultimate warm welcome to your home. Construction begins with the cuffs, which can be worked to ankle length or long enough to fold over. A single column of increases beautifully curves around the foot, highlighted by the architectural lines of brioche stitch. Short rows are used to lengthen the top of the foot, and the soles are worked flat in garter stitch from toe to heel, decreasing into the live upper stitches as you go. The only finishing required is grafting a few stitches together at the bottom of the heel. This would be a fun knit to use a different kind of stitch than just, stockinette or ribbing or garter stitch. It's a little bit different and probably a little more challenging to do brioche stitch, but like the pattern says, it gives you an ultimately very squishy fabric that would be so nice and cozy to have in slippers. I really love the idea of having a basket of slippers at your front door for guests to put on. That sounds so lovely. Maybe one day all my spare time, I could get that basket knit up. But in the meantime, I actually am planning to knit some of these slippers for gift knits this year. Maybe by the holidays or maybe by January if I can't get them all done. I want to make a pair for at least my daughter and my husband. And I have some yarn that I have left over from when I made my Felix pullover last year. This is Mountain Mohair by Green Mountain Spinnery. Like a skein and a half of it. It's a worsted / Aran weight gauged yarn that is 30% mohair and 70% wool. It's a 58 gram skein, which is about 140 yards. So between these two, I should be able to knit one pair of slippers in my 8-year-old daughter's size. So you probably do need a few skeins if you are knitting an adult large. Like if I'm going to knit my husband a pair, I'll probably get 2 skeins, like 100-gram skeins of worsted weight yarn to knit his size. They just look so cozy, and I like that also the idea that they're easy to put on but hard to take off, because I do think it is annoying when your slippers fall off your feet and they're trying to keep you warm. I have heard, but I haven't tried this before, that you can put either little globs of hot glue, or maybe even they might make something that they sell at Joann Fabrics or something like that, where you can put little rubber dots on the bottom of the slippers if you have wood floors or slippery floors that you don't want people to slide around on. That might be a nice touch to add to the bottom of the slippers that you knit, because knit slippers would be pretty slippery on wood floors, I do think. Next are the Sunday socks by Petite Knit. This pattern also costs 35 Danish kroner, which is $5.29 US. It is a worsted weight sock on US size 6 or 4 millimeter needles, and it comes in 5 different sizes. I think these are mainly adult sizes, but they do start off pretty small, so maybe a tween or teen could wear these socks. The Sunday socks are worked top down from cuff to toe. The socks are worked in double rib, knit 2, purl 2 on the leg, and instep and stockinette stitch on the heel and sole of the foot. So I do think that these are a great gift knit because they are ribbed socks, and ribbed socks tend to be very forgiving in size. If you know the person you're knitting for's shoe size or foot length, that's an easy enough thing to knit to, but getting the right size width-wise can sometimes be a challenge, and that's what makes rib socks so great, because they can expand or shrink down depending on the size of foot that they're on. So having a ribbed sock as a gift knit can be really handy. Again, so these are worsted weight, so they're pretty thick, and they wouldn't work well inside of boots or anything like that, but they would be great to wear around the house. And I like that there's a really generous cuff on these socks, so they just give that ultra cozy vibe to them. And the color that the pattern pictures is like this ecru color, which is very nice and classic and just looks super hygge. I don't know how else you would describe it, but looks like, wearing some socks, reading a good book on a chilly day. But you could mix it up, and you could go bright colors or marled some yarns together to make a really interesting look. So really, it's a blank canvas for all sorts of ideas that you might have. The final pattern are the Little Squirrel Socks by Tin Can Knits. It's another Tin Can Knits pattern because they are just awesome. This pattern actually costs $6 for the pattern, or $20 for the ebook. And the ebook is a great book of baby knits. But of course, Tin Can Knits usually has a very wide variety of sizes. So I actually own this ebook, and while it is focusing on knits for babies and toddlers, most of the patterns go all the way up through adult large, so you could knit things for the whole family. So I definitely recommend that ebook. I think it's called Max and Bodie's Wardrobe or something like that. These socks are worsted weight socks, again, just like the Sunday socks by Petite Knit, and they are knit on size 5. There are 7 sizes in these socks, so from baby all the way up through adult large. And they're very simple basic socks, but they have a little bit of a unique leg to them. So I could show you. I knit these for my son when he was about 6 months old, so you can see they are tiny. But a stretchy, cushy leg that just adds to the squish and warmth factor of a worsted weight sock. I don't know, it's just a little bit more unique looking than what you would typically find. And again, these are house socks, not meant for wearing in shoes outside, but cozy by the fire socks. All right. That is all of the patterns that I have rounded up for you today. I will continue this gift knitting series in future videos, so please subscribe so you can look out for those videos in the future. And now we will continue on by talking about the whips I have on the needles right now. Thanks for sticking around. Today's first whip is one you have seen if you've been watching recently. It is the Paulie Cardigan by Amy Christoffers. I purchased this wool at Flock Fiber Festival in Seattle in August, and I have been working on this for a few weeks now. I believe I cast it on towards the beginning of October, so maybe about a month I've been working on it. And look guys, I'm very close to being done. Whoop. Okay, it's hard to show this whole thing at once, but let me talk a little bit about it. So what I've shown you so far before have been, I had finished both sleeves and I had casted on the body. This is a cardigan, so it's knit flat, the body is, but the sleeves were knit in the round. And let's see, I have this little stitch marker from Hello Lavender. Let's see. A little sheet that I got at Flock Fiber Festival. But that's where I was the last time we chatted about this sweater. So I've made quite a bit of progress since then. Oh, needle. Okay. So after you finish the quilt star motif, you knit for a few inches more, depending on the size you're knitting, I'm sure. Let's see. There's a quilt star on the front panel and on the back and on the other front panel. So there's 3 stars all together. And then there's 2 stars, 1 on each sleeve. So I guess 5 stars all together. Very beautiful pattern. You knit a few more inches and then you actually start to attach the sleeves. You don't attach them all the way. There is a space underneath in the underarm that I will Kitchener together eventually. But you knit on most of the sleeve stitches. Let's see if you could see where I probably started around here where it gets lighter all of a sudden, I think. Anyways, and as you knit around, you do raglan decreases. So once you get the sleeves attached to the sweater, there's over 300 stitches. I believe there might have even been like 380 something stitches. So lots of knitting going back and forth. And you continue with this kind of waffly stitch pattern that is all done with mosaic knitting. And you do decreases in 4 axes around the cardigan to make raglan decreases. And I really like the way that those are showing up. Very pretty. So I have never knit a sweater this way before, and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty bad at reading my whole pattern. So I had no clue that this was coming. I figured I was gonna do, I knit cardigans before, so I figured I was gonna do, you know, the front panels and a back panel, seam them together on the top, and then attach the sleeves. But that is not what we've done. So it looks amazing, and it really gives a nice look because it's going to have kind of a V-neck shaping here as well. So I think the raglan decreases definitely mirror that neck shaping, which is nice. The only other thing I noticed when and I might have just had my stitch count off. I'm not sure about that, but on this side, my decreases look different. It's not the contrast color that's being highlighted, but the main color that's being highlighted. So that also looks really nice, but they don't look the same. And I went back and looked at the pattern pictures that are listed there, and I do believe the one that Candace from Farmer's Daughter Fibers is wearing, the yellow one, I believe that those two sides are different on hers as well. It's kind of hard to tell in the pictures, but it did look that way. So I was debating when I noticed that if I wanted to rip it all out, but it was like days of knitting, so I really didn't want to. But I decided to keep it because I was like, well, I think this one, maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. I don't know. It probably is not the way it's supposed to be, but it doesn't look too bad. So I think I'm going to keep it that way. The next problem I'm facing, I'm so close to being able to bind off up here on the neckline. I'm very close. I think I only have like a few more rows to do, but I'm running out of yarn. Okay, I have this much left. This is very sad. This is not going to be enough because the next step and the last step is to knit the button band. Now the button band, I also have never done it this way. Instead of picking up stitches, which would be a lot of stitches to pick up on this, and knitting off of that, you actually knit the button band separately, and I think you just cast on like 15 stitches in ribbing, and you knit it for the length that you need it to be, and then you sew it onto the cardigan. I know a lot of people don't like sewing and seaming. I don't really mind the seaming as much as I don't like picking up stitches, so I'm actually excited to try this out. But this is not going to be enough yarn to knit, I don't even know how many inches long button band that I'm going to need to knit. So I don't know where I went wrong in terms of figuring out how much yarn I needed. When I bought this at Flock, they had these postcards for each pattern that they were highlighting, and they told you based on the size you were knitting how many skeins of each kind of yarn to buy. So I went off of that. I guess I must have knit the sleeves a little longer and the body a little longer than what the pattern called for, as well as I tend to have a pretty tight gauge. So between those two things, I probably ate up more yarn than was forecasted, and so I need another skein of yarn. I ordered it last night from Spin Cycle. It's the Spinster's Daughter worsted weight from, it's like a collaboration between Spin Cycle and Farmer's Daughter Fibers in the color York. So I ordered that. Luckily they weren't sold out, but I have to wait for that to come now to finish this, and I really just wanted to be done with it. Oh, well, I did notice when I was knitting this cardigan in the first place, like the yarn skeins kind of, some of them have a little bit of a different color saturation to them. And so I don't know what the one that I ordered is going to look like, but I hope it's going to be fine. I mean, I think it'll be okay. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to finish it off. I'll probably have some extra yarn when I'm done, but I can use it for one of those patterns that I just highlighted in my video. So that is my Paulie cardigan. The other thing I need to still order are some buttons. So I need to look at some options for what kind of buttons I want to have for this cardigan. But I think I do. I know there's an option to not have buttons, but I think I do want buttons. I think it's nice to be able to close it up without it flopping open all the time. Ironically enough, I have enough of the spin cycle, which is the contrast color. I have like plenty of that. So I thought about like, could I make the button band out of that? But that would just look weird. So no, I'm not going to do that. I have been getting the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad every month this year in 2024, and I have been making it a challenge for myself to finish a pair of socks every month, and so far I've been successful, and I have 2 months left, so hopefully I can keep it up. So this month, every third month, you get the Pintler socks, which they put on. They are 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. They are a pretty thin fingering weight. They give you 2 half skeins instead of 1 full skein. So we got these 2 colors for our half skeins. It's a nice brown and gray color. And then, of course, you always get 1 mini skein. So the half skeins are 50 grams each, 231 yards. And you always get 1 mini skein. So this is a very lovely blue color that almost looks faded. And I don't know if that's going to come across on the camera, but it definitely kind of looks like it's been left out in the sun a little bit and got a little sun bleached, but still pretty. I decided to do the Under the Quilt socks by Stone Knits, which is a color work pattern, and it is continuing the quilt star theme that I have with my Paulie cardigan. So this is what I've got so far. Now, I don't know if you can see the difference between the first quilt stars that I did and the second quilt stars that I did, but I can see a pretty big difference in them. The reason that they look different is because I was trying a different way of doing the color work. So I don't do a ton of color work knitting, and I'm not super fast at it. So my go-to is usually to hold 1 strand of string at a time and drop them when I'm switching colors, and just, I'm a English style knitter using my, like, throwing with my right hand. So I will be constantly picking up and dropping the yarn, and that's what I did with the first round of stars. And then the second round I tried holding the contrast color with my left hand and picking it while throwing the main color with my right hand. And it's supposed to make you have some color dominance. So I thought I would want the color dominance in the contrast color. And I do think it is much more dominant, but I don't really like the way that it looks, because I don't like that you can't see the gray in the middle as well. And that's probably just like my lack of skill at holding 2 strands at the same time. And I could definitely keep practicing that, but I think I'm going to go back to dropping and picking up. The only issue that I was having with that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to try the other way, is that my yarn was just getting completely tangled up. And I think that was because I was trying to knit this while I was at Sacred Sheep last weekend, and I was out and about and moving around, and I couldn't, if I could sit on the couch and have like 1 ball on this side and 1 ball on the other side, I think I could keep them much better managed. But shoving them in a bag and taking it around with me different places, it definitely got super tangled. Anyways, it's kind of a slow going so far, but I did knit this second socks or stars this morning, so I can do it pretty quickly. And oh, and the cuff I did 1 inch of twisted rib. So I like the way twisted rib looks, and I used that mini skein. I think I'm going to use the mini skein for the heel and toe as well. And then I think I might alternate what color the stars are on the second sock, but we'll see how that looks when I get there. Those are my works in progress right now, and hopefully I will cast on some other projects this week while I wait for that last skein to come to finish my Paulie cardigan. I definitely want to cast on the mittens for my brother and maybe the slippers for my daughter. So I already have the yarn ready to go for that, so I just need to sit down and cast those things on. At the end of my podcast, I like to highlight a few of the patterns that you all are working on in our Knit Along community. Thank you to everybody who leaves a comment on my videos, tells me what they're working on. I love to hear about them, and so I hope that you continue to write those comments and let me know what's on your needles at this time, and I will try to highlight as many of them as I can in my next videos. So we have a few, I didn't do any last week, so we have a few to catch up on. Debbie says that she is knitting Jason's cashmere hat by Melissa Thompson, and this is her first project with cables, which is very exciting. She's an adventurous beginner. Rachel says that she just finished a Felix cardigan out of the High Desert Tweed Worsted by Knit Picks. That sounds great. A Felix cardigan in a tweed yarn sounds like it would be very lovely. Lorraine says that her daughter is an elementary school teacher, and she's been knitting hats for her to have extra in the class to hand out to students who may need them. And her go-to pattern is the Bee Wind hat, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. Handmade by Honey Bun says they are working on a bunch of socks for gift knitting. They're doing DK socks using a Walk Through Time DK socks by Sarah Taylor. And they are also working on a pair of Knoll socks by Rachel Nuttig, as well as 2 hipster hats for their nephews and trying to see if they can squeeze out another hat for their great nephew. That's a lot of gift knitting. Sandy Bean says that they are working on the Lamb Dancing Hat by Drops, which is a free pattern on Drops' website, and that they were about to start the Arne and Carlos Knit Along, which is a Christmas stocking, which sounds really fun. Knitty Linny says that their favorite way of knitting socks is to combine fingering sock yarn and mohair, and she likes to use the K Litton's DK Vanilla sock pattern. And I have never used mohair in socks, but I imagine that that would be quite warm and soft and fluffy. So, nice inspiration there. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to highlight for this video. Thank you so much for coming to the end of my video today. I hope that you got some inspiration either for gift knitting or for knitting for yourself. There is nothing wrong with a little selfish knitting, especially around the holidays. We could all use a little gift from ourselves. So thank you for sticking around and making it this far. Please feel free to like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and also you can find me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Hattie Knits Along and TikTok and at Hattie Knits Along, and of course here on YouTube. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and thanks so much. Happy knitting! Bye!